welcome to the EMF studio. I am delighted to be joined by Martin Horgan, CEO of Centamin. Martin, Centamin Sukari mine is the only commercial mine in Egypt, and we know that Centamin has the aspirations, along with the government, to increase the discoveries of more commercial mines. Can you tell us more about your aspirations and ambitions to help the government make the Egypt mining sector a significant contributor to its GDP, and how we're going to eventually get more exploration companies to come to Egypt?
Perfect, no problem. Thank you for having me today. Look, I think first and foremost is to think about the Sukari mine, which is already a contributor to the economy. The mine's been in operation since 2009, had a very successful run, and now we're thinking about how we can set the mine up for the next 10 years and beyond into the next decade. So we've focused very much for the last 2 or 3 years around optimizing the mine and making sure that Sukari fully contributes towards that target in its own right. We've increased reserves, we've added 2 million ounces of gold, we're increasing production rates back towards a 500,000 ounce level, and importantly focusing on costs, because clearly producing ounces at the right cost generates cash flow, which we share with government as part of our concession agreement. So I think the first point is to make sure that we fully optimise Sukari and make sure that is shared with our partners at EMRA and the Ministry of Petroleum as well. So delighted with that, and there's a few initiatives we can talk about later, certainly around costs and things like the solar plant we've developed as well. I think more broadly then, of course, is that we're very keen to see exploration take place across the Eastern Desert, where the Sukari mine is centred. And clearly, we believe that Sukari is a fantastic example of the potential of Egypt, both in terms of its geology, but also importantly around its infrastructure, around its human resource, around its stability, and its ease of operation as well. So we think that's important to continue to push that along. As you might be aware, that we applied in 2020 as part of the ministerial new bid round for exploration blocks, and we were awarded 3,000 square kilometres alongside some other leading international industry players. And we've actually been busy over the last 12 months starting to work our exploration ground already, and we're actually drilling at this stage now. In parallel with that, we work with our industry partners to engage with government to make sure that we develop what we believe will be a robust, a fair and equitable mining law, which will then encourage new companies to come to Egypt. And I think once those new companies come and start to sort of see the success that we and other groups are having, that will really start to sort of move the sector forward as well. So I think in part we're making sure we push Sukari as hard as we can. We're looking to push our exploration to grow that as an example to third parties, and work with government around that regulatory framework as well.
Fantastic. And can you tell me more about your current operations in Egypt? I know that recently you published your decarbonisation 2030 roadmap. Can you expand more on your operations and what initiatives to further decarbonise your operations?
Absolutely. So for us, clearly, as a London-listed entity on the stock exchange and with an international investor base, and our own individual desires as management and directors, is that decarbonisation is one of the key themes facing not just the mining industry but the planet as we go forward as well. And mining's in a slightly sort of unusual place, is that it clearly contributes to carbon emissions, but it's also critical to ensure that we get the raw materials that allow a decarbonisation and a low carbon future to happen. So the mining sector has to work hard at that, and at Centamin we're no different from that as well. I think the thing we've been pleasantly surprised at is that in looking to assess decarbonisation strategies, we've also been able to identify sort of cost savings. So it's not a case of that decarbonisation is an additional burden on the business, actually it's an opportunity. And certainly from our side, we think about reduction of use. Can we reduce the amount of energy that we apply to the mining process? And then once we reduce that energy, how do we produce that energy in a low carbon way? I think the flagship for us last year was the development of a 36 megawatt solar plant. We commissioned that in Q3 last year. About $36 million to build that. And that saves us about $20 million a year at current diesel prices in terms of our economics. So a very quick payback for that project, so makes absolutely perfect economic sense for us, but brilliantly reduces 60,000 tonnes of carbon from the atmosphere as well. So here's a wonderful example of decarbonisation that makes business sense. We're currently looking to expand that solar farm to further displace diesel, and we'll look at sort of completing those studies by the end of the year. And then the other thing we're currently evaluating is the ability to connect to the national grid. Egypt went through a transformatory approach to its energy distribution and power generation network over the last 5 to 7 years. It's seen 14 gigawatt of new power added with its own domestic gas, but also renewables in terms of solar and wind. And on top of that, sort of 3,000 kilometers of the high voltage distribution network around the country as well. So if we can connect into that grid, we can further reduce our cost base, another win for us. But importantly, the grid has an aspiration to be at 40% renewables by 2030, so further contributing to our decarbonisation. So we see the sort of the moral and the social imperative of decarbonisation is something to focus on, and we're also seeing it's a fantastic opportunity from a business perspective as well. And I think Egypt's one of the best places to do that, with solar irradiance, with standing winds, and that access to grid power as well.
Fantastic. And obviously you participated yesterday in our CEO panel on unlocking the potential of Egypt's mining sector. Can you just tell me sort of the key takeaways from that panel and just the Egypt Mining Forum in general? This is obviously the second edition of the forum, and wow, I mean, the growth speaks for itself. Over 40 speakers, 50 exhibitors, and really the platform has the potential to serve as an instrumental event for the global mining industry to come to Egypt and see the great potential over it.
I think that's right. Look, I think from my perspective, I was here last year at the inaugural event, and just walking around the place, you can see the scale of the event has increased significantly from last year. And I think that really speaks volumes to the potential that people see in Egypt. So whether it's exhibitors, participants, industry panelists, and governments as well. So I think that really sort of just the growth of the forum itself indicates the appetite and interest in Egypt. I think it's fantastic. I think it's access to key decision makers in government. The fact that the Minister of Petroleum, His Excellency Al Molla, is here, along with his full team, indicates Egypt's seriousness to commit to the mining sector. He has been here over the 2 days and is accessible and available. Other governments are here to represent themselves as well. All the major sort of mining companies are here that are active in Egypt, all the suppliers as well. So I think that's testament to the seriousness that people are seeing in that as well. I think that's fantastic. And having that access to a number of people in a single point has been really good. And for us, it's a chance to really put Egypt on the map and continue to promote the potential here, geologically, that we know is there, this new mining code that's developing, and then the opportunity for other companies to come here as well. So no, I've been delighted with the last 2 days.
Thank you so much for your time, Martin.